What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and this is my brutally honest review for Yakuza Like a Dragon. Now I know that some people are watching this video because of fear. I have noticed a lot of people, especially the hardcore fans of Yakuza, have been absolutely terrified about this game somehow managing to suck because it is completely different. Now if you've never tried a Yakuza game, the previous ones were giant open world experiences where we'd roam the streets of Japan, getting in fist fights, doing crazy side quests, and playing in arcades. And some of this stuff has carried over to Like a Dragon, but there is a lot of major changes that completely shake up the entire franchise. But in my opinion, these have been very, very good. Normally I tell you the score at the end. Let me just tell you right up front, this is one of my favorite games of the entire year. To be quite frank, I'm actually still in complete shock as to just how stellar this experience turned out. Now there is one major gripe I'm going to get to a little bit, but for the most part this is a bigger, better, and very, very fresh take on Yakuza. Now there won't be any spoilers in this, but let's begin by talking about the story because this is one of the biggest changes to the franchise, which is that the previous hero is gone. We actually have a completely new person who's taking over the series, and I gotta say, I absolutely love him for a lot of reasons that I want to get into. So this guy is Ichiban. He's kind of an emotional hothead, somebody who likes to get in fights, but also really enjoys having fun with his friends. I also like the fact that his name Ichiban, in Japanese, that means the best, and it's kind of a joke because he's definitely a lovable loser. Well, Ichiban as a kid, he got abandoned as a child in a bathhouse, and the managers decided to raise him, and that was pretty cool. Now this was good for a while until eventually at the age of 16 he falls into a bad crowd and ends up getting tangled up with the Yakuza, but instead of this organized Japanese mafia deciding to kill him, he ends up getting adopted by one of the patriarchs, which is basically one of the fathers of these mafia families. And to him, to Ichiban, this is now basically his real family because he's never had parents, he's never had siblings, and so the Yakuza family truly becomes his family. The crimes they commit, the people they beat up, it's just something that's part of the goal of surviving in the Yakuza. But one day he's asked to do the worst thing ever, which is that unfortunately there's been a murder and somebody needs to take the fall. So Ichiban volunteers to go to prison for 18 years, and he does. So this is where the story basically begins, which is Ichi kind of hitting the streets again after nearly 2 decades away, and now he has to try and figure out the world again, learning things like how to talk to girls, what the heck is a smartphone, and trying to even figure out things like the internet. But I think that all of this works because Ichi is still, at his heart, he's a person who wants to just figure out the Yakuza. But unfortunately, all of his old family have decided to abandon him. So throughout the course of this game, we're basically trying to get to our own sense of justice, trying to figure out why we were betrayed, what happened while we were gone, and doing everything to try and make the best life possible from these terrible shambles. But here's where the other major change about the game takes place. Now, the previous Yakuza games we played as a different character, but we also had a very different style of action, which is that everything used to be just very freeform. You'd walk up and just beat people up in different fighting stances and stuff. Well, that has been removed, and in Like a Dragon, everything is turn-based combat. This is now completely a 50-hour-long turn-based RPG, and strangely enough, despite the fact that this is a massive departure from the franchise, it completely works. But let me talk about why. So basically in this, you start getting different teammates and stuff to join you, from an ex-cop to a hostess, and all these people have different specialities. But what's funny about it is that everybody kind of fits into the classic Dragon Quest archetypes. And they say that. That's not my own speculation. Straight up, the point of this game is that Ichi is so obsessed with the classic Dragon Quest games, he wants to make himself the hero of the real world, to become the master of the Yakuza and also master his fists. And it's so fun to use this. So the way this actually works in practice is that as you're roaming the streets of Japan trying to solve mysteries and stuff, you will occasionally bump into these groups of enemies. And when this happens, a battle will commence. And this is when you get a chance to use each of your different characters' magic abilities, from breathing fire or using an electric bat and stuff. And it's definitely fun because it has such a silly gimmick to it. Now, This is really eccentric and bizarre, but what I also like about this is that you'll notice that there is just wild spell effects. People are doing just the craziest stuff. Like, here I am using a cell phone to call down like a chicken god to shoot a fresh egg into rice, and eating it gives me full health. Or actually just going up and trying to stab people through the guts. And it's just absolute craziness. Like, here I am walking through some tunnels, and now I'm using my purse to hit an evil tractor. It is absurd, but part of what I like about this is that the game is constantly self-aware. In fact, the other characters even talk to Ichiban about how this is normal to them, and only our hero sees this as a turn-based RPG. To the rest of the people, the world is completely normal. It's just people fighting and struggling to survive. Only we are witnessing this as a hilarious turn-based RPG of might and magic. But this is where things get really crazy cool to me, is that there is a classic RPG style class system. So what you can do is there are different professions in the game called jobs. Now these could be things like construction worker, which could let you use like giant sledgehammers in battle. You can be a bodyguard, which is this dude who uses swords and stuff. You can be a lounge singer and have a microphone that can blast people. Right here, this is one of the jobs that cracked me up. A musician, so you fight people with a guitar, or you can play the guitar in combat to cast healing spells. It is so wildly different, but every job is fun and fits. Everything in this game is just so funny and silly, and I think that's part of why this works so much, is that it doesn't try and take itself seriously, and so because of it, the entire journey feels like a big epic quest, but one that we're in on the joke. We're getting a chance to see almost a parody of RPGs, but also inside of an amazing RPG. I straight up laughed at times when I'm like fighting a bad guy, and he casts a spell called Call for Backup, and he physically pulls out a cell phone, dials his friend, and when his friend doesn't pick up the phone, it says spell failed. Stuff like that is hilarious to me, and it completely works. But to go along with this great writing and stuff, I think that part of the reason this is so fun is because we're getting a chance to be Ichi. I think having this new hero who is younger and is so inexperienced in this world, I really enjoyed his journey specifically through this. Getting a chance to see his trials and tribulations, his bad days, his good days, his triumphs are really, really fun, and the acting in this game is fantastic. So the last couple Yakuza games have started to be made in English. You can still play them in Japanese, but I have to say, I think that the English voice acting cast is very interesting. Some of the choices, like one of the characters that helps you out, the patriarch of the Yakuza family that you're in, is George Takei, like from Star Trek. He's in this, and it's cool to see these people really acting their freaking hearts out. There's a real sense of effort and deliberate action to every piece of this story that definitely fits together nicely. But the biggest character in all the Yakuza games is definitely the maps we play in. The cities that we get a chance to explore are definitely a character all unto themselves. Now, a bunch of the previous games, of course, took place in Kamurocho, but this one takes place in a new area called Yokohama. Now, Yokohama is a little bit tinier, but it also has still tons of stuff to do. In my opinion, the major reason that I feel like everybody needs to try Yakuza games is because of the side activities, whether it be weird random quests, the fact that you can physically walk down the streets and waltz into any building pretty much. The doors are just instantly openable. You can walk in and sit down at an arcade machine and just start playing classic Sega games, or go up to one of those like crane games and start winning prizes out of it. Or just totally insane things, like in this one they have an entire minigame based around the idea of Pokemon, so you're going around and trying to capture bad guys. But the biggest new additions to this are two things, which is there is a new style of basically Mario Kart called Dragon Kart, which is very, very fun. There is a lot of stuff that you could do in the city, like collecting cans and getting in races, but the biggest new addition is something I don't particularly love. Now, this is the only gripes I have with the game. I'm going to get into the two negatives. One of them is the new Run a Corporation minigame. You basically get a chance to start your own franchise, and to me, it just feels a little bit tedious because it almost feels like paperwork. You basically go through and trying to balance your budget, hire the best employees possible, and make yourself profitable. But it doesn't seem fun. It's one of those things that I guess is accurate. It's kind of cool for the world to see how all these different places in Yokohama stay in business, but I guess I personally just don't care about it because I'm here for fun RPG battles or going to get lost in a place and going to play Mahjong or something, or, just helping out random people on the streets. Like, one of the things they've added to this game that I think is really interesting is this thing called Hire a Hero, where you can basically do like side quests where you pretend to actually be a hero. People can hire you to be a bodyguard or deliver top secret items. Like, stuff like that is what Yakuza is about. At its very core, this is Yakuza. Now, the other gripe I have is that sometimes the battles, I feel a little bit out of control. So the major thing about this is, as I showed you before, you get a chance to choose your attacks, you can try and do combos, you can knock people on the ground and stuff. But my problem is that you don't get a chance to physically choose where somebody is at. You can't move your characters, the enemies kind of just meander around the battlefield, and some of these special attacks are area based. Like, it'll do something where it'll do like a 6-yard shock ability or something. So it sucks sometimes if you get screwed over by somebody just taking a step to the left or to the right. With a game that manages to have such a strong combat system, I did at times get annoyed that I didn't have more power or more control to this. It definitely felt like I was sometimes just a victim to the whims of the AI. Whatever they chose to be the combat is what the combat would be. Now, these are tiny gripes, and for the most part, this game is exactly what I hoped it would be, and so much more. This is seriously one of my favorite games in all of 2020, and already I'm ready to go back and try and finish off every side quest and find every single Yakuza-style Pokemon. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go over the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Yakuza Like a Dragon a 9.5 out of 10. I do want to make a final note here, which is that everything you saw in this video was recorded on a PlayStation 4 Pro. I definitely want to see this game again on my PlayStation 5. The official PlayStation 5 version doesn't come out for a while, but there is about to be an Xbox Series X version. I do think that this is a game that will actually benefit a good amount to having a next-gen upgrade. Having no load times and being able to explore this giant, gorgeous city very seamlessly is going to be a very good time, and I hope that people give this one a shot. I really do genuinely hope this game sells well because it deserves a lot of positive attention. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.